really was just my computer and me moving too slow. But with that said, today we're going to do something slightly different. This one is, I've been having a lot of conversations. I think perfect example today, I had a conversation with one of my mentees. Shout out to you, Jason, if you actually see this one. Jason we actually met some years ago. He was one of the first people that interned for me at my company, Benson. Back then it was called Unit. We had a whole different app. Nonetheless, Jason and I are still very tight. Jason is about 26 years old, and he is, going through some like big life changes in the best possible ways. And we spoke this morning for probably like 30, 40 minutes. I'm doing my daily walk or my morning walk with Kane. And I realized some of the conversations that I have with friends should be shared a bit more publicly. And I'll keep it high level, of course. But Jason is hitting some like very important milestones in life. And he's just like, yo, cool. Now I want to prioritize, some of this stuff with money a bit more seriously. So essentially, I broke it down to like, for lack of better words, 3 major mistakes that every person will make. But if you continue making these mistakes, it's going to cost you everything. Now, if you understand these mistakes, you have the cheat code to this entire game of building wealth. However, if you decide to ignore these major pitfalls, you're screwed. And I've had these conversations one-off with a lot of different people on Benson, but I don't think I've ever really taken the time to articulate it and share it in a way that I think and hopefully will be received by other people sometime down the line. So I was just like, today may be a perfect day for that. We're going into holiday season. Everybody's about to start thinking about what are those big goals for the top of the year. Olive, good to see you. Everybody's going to start thinking about what are those big goals for the top of the year. And hopefully, you take something from this. But first, of course, quick little intro. My name is Phillip Aubrey. This is our 14th episode of the Benson Report. You can think of the Benson Report as where I jump on TikTok Live and YouTube twice a week to just talk about what's happening in the market, what's happening with money, and more importantly, of course, and not even shameless at this point, how are we at Benson taking advantage of all of what's happening right now? For those that don't know, I am the CEO of an app called Benson AI, and what we do is we use AI to do all of your investing for you, all automatically. And today's episode is on the 3 broke mistakes. These mistakes, if you continue making them, will make sure that you never get to the point of actually accumulating wealth. And these are conversations that I've sort of like cherry picked from a lot of friend conversations that I've had. But again, I want to share this with you all because I think of everybody here as actually friends and family. A lot of people have been here on TikTok Live with me since I started this process, helping me build the company, features out, helping me understand the problems a lot more. So it's only right that I also take a bit of time to pull the curtains back a bit and say like, yo, this is how I actually think about this stuff. Now, before I jump into it today, it's also a pretty special day for me. Avery, I appreciate you for calling that out. I just got to give a shout out to the Ice Cobras. Today is Founders Day for the bros of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I became an alpha back in 2015. I was a sophomore in college, and by far was one of the best decisions I ever made. By far. I think it was incredibly exciting to be around other Black men who were, for lack of better words, inspirational. Today, those guys are my line brothers, and now some of the guys that I call when I'm going through whatever is happening. So if you know any alphas, if you have any alphas in your corner, make sure to reach out to them. Say Happy Founders Day. They will appreciate it. Thank you, everyone in the chat who also just said that to me. For those that don't know, Alpha Phi Alpha is the oldest Black D9 organization. You have countless very well respected men that became alphas, Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, so many. But phenomenal organization. If you got some young guys that are in college right now, tell them to look into it. Now, with that said, I'm going to jump straight into this, but really appreciate you, AB, for calling it out, because I planned to speak about it earlier, but as soon as my TikTok and YouTube started going down, I was just like, bro, I'm struggling here. So really appreciate you. Thank you to all the Happy Founders Days in the chats as well. As you guys also know, moving on. As you guys also know, I am training for my next marathon. What that means for me is just that I am also trying to do a better job of being punctual. That didn't go too well today, but also ending at a reasonable time. So this is going to be one of those conversations where I will talk more if you guys ask more questions. But otherwise, I'm going to speed through these things. I'm going to try to wrap this up in like 30 minutes. So with that said, the 3 broke mistakes. Number 1, again, we are talking about what are the 3 things that you can do to absolutely make sure that you stay broke. I'll say that again. These are the 3 things that you can do if you want to stay broke. Now, if your goal is to, be the first person in your family to hit these crazy milestones of $100,000, $1 million, $2 million, whatever the case is, you want to do the exact opposite of what we're about to talk about. So pay attention closely. Ask questions, because this one is one of those conversations where I'm just talking to you how I actually talk to my friends. So recently, I was invited to talk to some college students. And I do this every year. It's one of my friends. She has an organization where she gives scholarships to, people from low-income communities that are going into college, help them out X, Y, and Z, because we all have that sort of background. She's a phenomenal woman. Her name is Nadia. Nadia, every single year, invites me to come and talk to these college students. And, it's only so much that a young person will listen to when you're talking to them. So I go in these conversations and I'm like, look, bro, I don't want to give you 1,000 rules. I want to tell you the only thing that actually matters in this entire game that you care about: how to make money. So the last time I spoke to them, I boiled it down to one simple rule. This one simple rule was that if you were able to follow this, you'll be very handsomely rewarded. But bringing it back over here, the number one mistake that people make with this whole game of building money, getting your first million, whatever the case is they make it an afterthought. What I mean by that is that it becomes a priority only when you feel good about something. If you make it an afterthought, you will ultimately never decide that it is time to actually get started. Case in point, right now, as you are listening to me, I want you to think about the last time something went absolutely perfectly well in your life. I'll say that again. I want you to actually think about that. Think about when's the last time that something went perfectly well. What I can guarantee is that you were probably struggling to find an answer there. What that says is that it is very, very rare that something goes absolutely perfectly well. Said otherwise, it will never feel good to actually start. You just have to get going. But you can't really talk to like college students that way. Like, it doesn't matter to them. Sure, like I'll do it in 2 years. So what I did then, I was just like, all right, no. Let's put some numbers behind this. Y'all know that I love numbers here. Let's talk about average stuff. The cheat code that I told these students was just that, hey, if you were to do one simple thing, you were going to walk away with roughly $3.2 million by the time that you retire. The only thing that you have to do, if you want to turn 65, let's walk through the assumptions first. If you're 20 right now, if you want to turn 65 and have $3.2 million in your name as a conservative, it's the low end, as a conservative number, you only have to do one single thing. That's when you're like, okay, the kids, the college students here, they're now perked up. They're like, oh, only one thing and I can walk away with $3.2 million by the time I retire? That's when they're like, oh, crap, I'll pay attention to this. last time I tried to talk to him, it was a whole bunch of things. I'm like, yo, pay off debt, do all these things. I'm like, no. Let's just stick to what you care about. How do you get as much money as possible? So the end goal here is $3.2 million. If you're 20 years old, a 12% return over those 45 years of you being from 20 up to 65, all you have to do is invest $150 every single month. That's it. If you are 20 years old, on your 20th birthday, if you start investing $150 every single month to the S&P 500, historically it does between 10 and 12%. You do that blindly. Just set it up on autopilot. You do that, by the time that you retire, you're going to walk away with roughly $3.2 million. And then they're like, really? Only $150? And you're like, yes. Yes, all you have to do is start with $150. Now, for a freshman or a person fresh out of college, $150 a month is a lot of money. Heck, for most Americans, that is a lot of money. But if you are fortunate to say, hey, I can commit to $150 every single month, that is what I get when I walk away, the answer is yes. And then I was just like, there's a huge but. There's a huge but. There's one huge but at the end. The huge but is that for every year that you wait to start, you are going to be detracting $300,000 off of that end number. $300,000 for every single year that you wait. That is the tangible cost of deciding to kick this can down the road for another year. And then you're like, oh, that's a huge cost. Over the course of that year of investing, you're 20 with that first year of investing, $150 every single month, you would not have put in, you surely would not have put in anywhere close to $300,000. But that's how much you will lose by waiting out. And at that time, I'm like talking to the college students and then they're like, man, that sounds like a huge cost. And I was just like, exactly. That is the cost of waiting 1 year when you are 20 years old. And not to mention, for everyone else, if you start later, again, we're talking about $300,000 off pretty much every year. And these are, rough estimates. It technically ranges from like $210,000 to $300,000, somewhere in that range. But, just for rounding sake, I'm like, let's, it's actually $350 on the high end. So from $210,000 to $350,000, I'm like, whatever. I don't need to bore you with like the exact details. I want you to get the bigger picture here. The bigger picture is that by waiting, you shoot yourself in the foot. Every single year that you wait costs you roughly $300,000 from that end goal that you all want. And to get to these numbers, I pulled the calculator up for them live to show them these numbers. I'm like, look, this is not, you don't need to be a Michael Jordan to walk away with the 3.2 million. You actually can be very average, as long as you are able to do, 150. And fine, if 150 is too much for you, cut it in half, do 75. You'll still be way better off than the person that decided to wait one additional year. But no matter what, if your goal is to say, hey, I want that 3.2 million, wait 1 year. And now you are saying, hey, if you start at 21, the average that you can walk away with is 2.9. Wait another year, 2.6. Wait another year, 2.3. Every single year that you wait, start taking $300,000 off. Making it an afterthought is by far the largest mistake that you can make. Now, I want to flip this on its head, though, because I do know that a part of this investing game is not just what you do for yourself. It's also what you do for the generation behind you. And being that, I'm Black, I imagine, half of us here at least are Black. We have to do a bit more to catch up for the next generation behind us. So flipping that on its head, my assumption was that this person doesn't start until they're 20. If you have a child right now, or if you have a grandchild right now, what does it look like if you start investing, I don't know, $50 or $150 for that kid that, you love? And instead of, them being 20, this kid is is, let's say, I don't know, 5. You know, you get the whole family, you say every month we all got to put in $25 to make sure that we're putting, you know, $150 into little Marissa's account every single month. When we talk about generational wealth, that is the game. And I know that, like, for us as Black folks, like, we have to be the first person in our families to figure this stuff out. And it's, you know, it's reality. I don't even like to say it's unfortunate, because it's just reality. Like, nothing about our existence in this country has ever been easy. It's reality. But there's a lot of information out there now. We have a lot of tools at our disposal now. And if you are getting this information and deciding not to take action for yourself, at bare minimum, take action for the people that are looking up to you, AKA your children and grandchildren. This is not even a plug for Benson right now. This is a plug for, I don't care how you do it. The time to start is now, regardless of whether or not you use Benson or not. And I love this little comment from Jose. He said, and I'm going to say it in his voice. He said, the math is not mathing. At $150 a month, 10% compounded returns over 45 years. Bruh, you didn't listen. I said 12%. 10% is actually adjusted for inflation. When you take out inflation, on average, the S&P 500 has returned between 12 and 14% annually. So I said 12%. Now go ahead and do your math again and tell me what you come up with, Jose. But again, either way, with or without your desire to do it, you have to make a decision on whether or not you want to do this for yourself, or at bare minimum for the people behind you. That's the largest, or one of the largest mistakes that people make. You make it an afterthought. You decide that, hey, I'm going to start this in 1 or 2 years versus starting now. And again, it's not even telling you to go ahead and download Benson. Like, yes, your chances are going to be much higher, but nonetheless, do this for yourself. It truly does not matter. The most important thing is that you start. Even if it's not for yourself, you should be starting. I'm going to pull this up because Jose is struggling here to type in some numbers. So I am going to pipe this in for you, Jose, so that you can, you know, look at your math and see what you are doing wrong here. Because, yeah, it's really simple to come up with these numbers, but, you know, I think that it's going to be something that this may be actually a really good learning point. Jose, you make me want to do something, which is to share my screen. So I'm about to experiment on how I could actually share my screen here, because this is really easy math here. And I don't think most people are actually going to look at this down the line, but if you are curious, the website that you can go to is called investor.gov. So I don't know what calculator you are using, Jose, but, you know, if you want to look at this, I would say the best website to go to is investor.gov. Now, what I'm about to do, I'm about to try to do this. Oh, that did not work. I'm about to try to do this live, which is like change my camera. Because if I can, you'll get to see this and it may help. But I really don't know how. So I'm gonna try it. How would I change my screen here? Is this the right one? Nope, that one's not it. Oh, I think I figured it out. Jose, you may have just put me on. Let's go, Jose. If this works, I want y'all to say thanks, Jose, because this is actually helpful. Boom. Alrighty, Jose, this is specifically for you, my guy. This website, by the way, is called investor.gov. This is a website created by the United States government. It is, again, it doesn't get more legit than this. It does not get more legit than this. The numbers that we are talking about here, very, very simple. These are not numbers that I'm making up on my own. So when a person says your math is not mathing, I love those sorts of comments because I am the last person who's going to make up some numbers and go and shout them out to the void. I am a quant. That is the last thing you do. So we're starting out with an initial investment of $0 because, again, if you're starting from ground zero, you don't have a lot of money. You are saying $0. Again, the monthly contribution is $150, plain and simple. The timeline that you are using is 45 years. Because again, if you're starting at the age of 20 up until 65, that is 45 years. And then the estimated interest rate over the course of that 45 years is 12. Last but not least, monthly compounding, and that's because you are depositing monthly. Most people would leave this at annually, but that would assume that you're depositing money in every single year at the end, aka December 31st of every year. But again, I said drop it in, $150 every single month. Boom. Meaning you change this compounding frequency to monthly. From there, as you can see, that translates to $3.2 million. It was not a joke when I said this is the number that you walk away with. And I can say 100% that before I jump on these lives or whatnot, I always check my math. So no, you're absolutely wrong. The math is mathing in your words, but no, that's 3.2 million. Now you change that to 44, you're going to see this drop down by another $300,000 on a rough estimate. But if you want to play around with this yourself, again, the inputs are here. Go to investor.gov, type this in. Investor.gov, type it in yourself. You will see. Start out with a $0 initial investment, monthly contributions of $150. Timeline is 45 years, 12%, and then monthly contribution. You will get the exact same numbers that I got. Now, with that said, Jose, appreciate you for calling that out, because now if there's anybody else who's curious about trying to pipe these numbers in for themselves, they don't have to be like Jose. They don't have to, come in here and assume ill intent. Because that question that Jose asked could have been reframed as like, oh, tell me how you got there. But instead, sometimes you just got to prove to people like, yeah, you ain't gonna talk circles around me with numbers. Other things, maybe, not numbers. With that said, y'all, still a helpful tool. When I became a investor out of college, I spent a lot of time on this website. I think it's an old clunky website. You got to figure out what compounding makes sense based on your contributions amounts. But if you understand that, it's simple. In the worst case scenario, however often you deposit, match it up with your compounding frequency. So helpful tool. If you are a little nerd and want to figure this stuff out on your own, I do highly, highly encourage that website. I absolutely love it. But as you can see, it's not pretty. It's not sexy, but it gets the job done. But with that said, that is mistake number one. So if your goal is to, get to that point of having that money at the finish line, the single largest thing that you will do that will hurt you is saying it's an afterthought. I will start this somewhere down the line. It's one of the worst things that you can do. Now, with that said, again, I told you I'm not going to talk too long here tonight. I'm not going to talk too long. Marcus asked a really good question. He said, where do we invest that 150? Lots of different schools of thought there, Marcus. If you are, doing this on your own, I tell every single person that I meet, the first place to start investing, if you're doing this on your own, Marcus, the first place is to just buy an ETF. You look at the S&P 500. My favorite version of the S&P 500 ETF is VU. It has one of the lowest expense ratios. It is, diversified from the jump. But as you get older, you'll want to start, or as you're young, you do want to start taking some swings and say, cool, let me pick out, a few stocks. On average, you're going to walk away with, let's just say 12% from the S&P 500 on an annual basis. When you think about that, that's very good. However, 12% for some people is not going to feel good or like enough, and that's where the individual stocks come into play. Now, when you're buying individual stocks, you do want to do your research. So I'll say that is why I built Benson, so that it kind of does the work for you. But nonetheless, Marcus, I'm just assuming that you're a person off the street. I'm talking to you the way I would talk to my cousin, which is start safely first. Pick out an ETF, Buy that one ETF for a whole year. Start there. But again, that's how I do it. That's what I did. That's what I have instructed my little sister to do. That's exactly what I tell all my mentees as well. And then when you get into the idea that, or when you get into the practice of like understanding that the market goes up and down every day, it's not that big of a deal. From there, you say, cool. It's not all hokey pokey. It's not, gambling. It's not blah, blah, blah. And then from there, you start saying, cool, I want to just tack on a little few stocks here that are going to supercharge my returns. But yeah, nonetheless, moving on to point number 2, because again, this is one of those like unscripted topics for this live. Moving on to point number 2. The second largest mistake that people make. Mistake number 2 is that you do not have a repeatable process. As y'all know, I am training for marathon number 5 right now. And I've been really struggling with my running. By the way, I did 4 miles today, so I feel really good. You need to have a repeatable process. The reason is just that you're not going to wake up every single month and feel good or feel excited about what you have to do. There's a lot of behavioral science, especially around investing and finance, that says that if it's difficult, you will decide not to do it. If you have to make the active choice to do it, you likely will not do it. Perfect example for me, I'm training for a marathon. That's 26 miles that I have to run straight. My failure state for the last few months, and this is me being a bit vulnerable here. I've been trying to run for the last few months. It has not been going well. I'll make the decision when I wake up for how many miles I'm going to run. And guess what? When I wake up that morning, it's 5 o'clock, it's cold outside. I'm like, it's not a good day to run. I can make up any excuse for why I won't do it. It's a process that's not repeatable. So this time, what I did, and maybe this is where I could actually share my screen again. What I did this time is actually I came up and I created a running schedule. I said, hey, my AI tool, I have a marathon that I am going to be running in March. I need to have a schedule that I stick to regardless of how I feel every morning. I don't have to think about it. It is a repeatable process. It is something that I wake up, I look at this piece of paper and say, hey, this is what I got to do. It doesn't matter for how I feel today. Why do you need to do this same exact thing with investing? It's actually quite simple. Again, you will never feel like the time is right. You're going to say, man, this week was or this month was a rough month. So what am I going to do? Nothing. As soon as you start deciding that you are going to do nothing, that means you don't have a process that you can stick to. This whole $3.2 million, starting from the age of 20 up to 65, that only works if you are consistently contributing that $150 every month. If you, however, decide that I am going to do it half of the time over the course of a year, you're pretty much guaranteeing that you are kissing roughly 60 to 70% away. So having a repeatable process is how you separate yourself from the crowd. Again, the average person like myself 2 months ago is going to wake up and say, I got a marathon that I'm training for, or I'm supposed to be training for, but I don't feel like running today. Whereas the best version of myself is going to wake up and say, hey, it doesn't matter. I don't got to think about this. The repeatable process is quite simple. Look at this piece of paper. It will tell you how many miles you need to run. You can do this exact same thing with your investing. For me, and this is kind of going back to what I was talking to Jason about this morning. When I spoke to Jason, I was just like, look, dog, I don't care how much you like or dislike your job. I truly don't. Most people spend their entire lives not liking their jobs. With or without liking your job, you need to be automating this entire journey for you. I do not care every single month. And this is how I'm talking to like one of my boys. He's like my mentee. So I can talk to him as directly as I would talk to a friend. I wouldn't talk to y'all like that. Don't worry. I wouldn't talk to y'all like that. But I'm like, Jason, I really don't care, dog. No matter what, you need to be doing, I don't know, 10% of your paycheck, investing it every single month. And if you have to make that decision, what is 10%? Okay, transfer it here, blah, blah, blah. You've already lost. For me, and this is, me being a bit vulnerable here, what I do with my paycheck is broken up by the time it hits my account. It is broken up into 3 or 4 different accounts, meaning I never see the money that is supposed to be invested. It never hits my checking account. It goes straight to my investment account. The money for my rainy day fund goes straight to my high yield savings account. The money I use to pay for bills, that goes straight to a checking account labeled bills. And then I have a separate one for fun money, which is just, hey, I want to go out to dinner and, go on a nice little date, whatever the case is. That is the repeatable process here, which is you lock yourself into a process that you can stick to, and it makes it incredibly easy for you to win. I wish I could find my little cheat sheet for my marathon training. I do want to mental math. I got to go back through my history of all these different. Here it goes. I found the cheat sheet or the training the training guide that I wrote for myself. Cool. Here it goes. Because I have realized the most effective, productive times in my life, I have always had a repeatable process. I'm really good at this investing thing because it's a repeatable process. I know every single month I'm going to invest the same amount of money. Unless, I just have a good month and something went incredibly well and I decide to invest a little bit more. But otherwise, it's a repeatable process. I know that, when I'm in the peak of like training, I'm not thinking, I wake up and look and say, hey, I was told I have to run this many miles. This is how many miles I got to run. This loading is taking way too long. Clearly, I do need a new computer. But mistake number 2 is allowing your emotions to dictate what you are going to do. A repeatable process means that you are not allowing your emotions to determine what is the best route. You're allowing your logical side of yourself to say, hey, I know that I have this goal of getting to 3.2 million. I got to stick to $150 a month in order to get there. It don't matter what's happening this month. I don't care if it is the month of December and you want to ball out and buy everybody Louis Vuitton purses. You still got to stick to your 150. And this is, again, how I talk to my mentees. Again, that's not to you. You do what you want. I'm just letting you know what has worked for me. But the repeatable process also takes a lot of pain off of your shoulders, man. You don't have to think. Like, the fatigue that you get from having to make 100 decisions really weighs on you. And if you start saying, hey, I want to make fewer and fewer decisions, but those decisions that I make are, more impactful, you start to spend a lot of time improving. So again, people have asked the question of why does Benson invest every single week? Again, I'm not going to talk to you the way that I talk to like my mentees, Jason. We have a very strong relationship, but the answer is quite simple. The answer is incredibly simple. What the app is doing is locking you into the exact same process that all of these successful investors actually do. They're not allowing their emotions to decide how much they're going to invest every month. Stick to a number that you can do. It pays off it pays off very quickly when you don't have to think about it. And even for the people who adjust their weekly budgets, frequently, they generally are not going below the number that they originally set. They're normally just adjusting up. So, it's only so much. I can't explain 1,000 rules to people. But if I just let you know, hey, the only 2 things that you need to do is invest consistently and, have great stocks, that becomes a lot easier to explain. But that is actually a little context behind why we invest every single week. And, the other hidden part is just that every single week we're able to find different deals. We're able to find a stock that dropped, a little bit, so we buy a bit more of that specific stock. Now, again, I don't care right now. This conversation is not specifically for you to go and download Benson. Of course, I'd love for you to go and download Benson, but no, I don't care right now. I think this is just a message that everyone needs to hear, because the more that everyone around us does better, we all do better. So even if you're not using Benson, you still should be investing every single month. I do not care if it is $1,000 or $100. Every single month, you should be setting aside that money to lock in. If you're saying your goal is to truly, be that person in your family that changes, that adds some value behind your last name, it's not going to be easy. But your job is to make it happen to the best of your ability. And, there are some people who are going to say, cool, I'm 60 years old now. Fine. You teach your children and your grandchildren how to win at this game, and you lead by example. No matter what, we all have a role in this game. I think as we are approaching 2026, it's incredibly important for you to figure out how much of a leadership role you want to take in this, in this journey for you and your family. Because over here, like on my end, everyone around me knows that I'm very strict when it comes to my money. Sid asked a really good question. Let me finish my thought there, Sid. I'll jump straight to that. Everyone knows that I'm very strict about my money. I live below my means intentionally. I didn't wrote down a plan for Courtney and I to follow, because, she's going to have her own opinions about, how we manage like our money collectively. But I'm not sharing this with you while I am not doing it myself. My dog wants to leave the office, but no, he's going to get out there. He's going to start barking. I don't got time for it. His bark is way too loud. Kane, over here. Come on, come back. Okay. Place. You good. Place. Go. Place. Good. Sid asked a question. He said, on investor.gov, what's the difference between interest rate and interest rate variance? Simple. You can assume a flat number every single year, which is just average, or you can just assume that every year is going to be slightly different. That variance decides how big those dips or troughs are, or those peaks or troughs are. I generally leave it blank, but it is a helpful little tool if you want to be even more accurate. So that is mistake number 2. Now, mistake number 3 is something that I have never heard anyone talk about, but this is a painful one for me. As y'all can tell clearly tonight, I just came here to talk. I felt very, inspired by Jason coming to me to pick my brain on some of these things. And I was just like, I don't have an outlet to really talk to y'all directly about stuff, like very candidly. Most of the time I want to share research on stocks and stuff like that. But I was just like, maybe this is a opportunity to practice vulnerability. And this one is point number 3 is one of my personal most painful mistakes. I'll say that again. Point number 3, I have never heard anyone else talk about. But I have made this mistake countless times. And if I was not laughing about it, I truly would be crying. So some of you may have heard this story because, you got half of the people here are like family. Others heard it casually, but didn't understand how painful it was to watch or experience. Mistake number 3 is not focusing hard enough on your winners. Back in 2013, I was a freshman in college, and I met this guy. One of my, he was on the same floor as me. Fun fact, I lived in the sober dorm freshman year. So I was with everybody else who also didn't drink. I don't drink alcohol. I've never drank alcohol. I was just like, hey, I know college is a lot of drinking. I want to stay with all the people who are equally as weird and deciding not to drink. So stayed there. So everybody on this floor decides to not drink. Great. I meet this guy, Jeremy. Jeremy happens to be a very well-off entrepreneur today. Jeremy and I are talking about investments. He's like, yo, man, again, it's 2013. He's like, yo, dog, I know you're really into this money stuff. I need you to listen to me when I say this. Jeremy is like very serious. He's normally a very smiley, chill guy. He's like, I need you to listen to me when I say this. Go and buy as much Bitcoin as you possibly can. At that time, again, it's 2013. I'm a freshman in college. Each Bitcoin is around $300-$400. And, you know, I did go and buy some Bitcoin, but I did not listen to him. I bought some Bitcoin, and like every other person, and we all can understand this, every other person, I'm like, cool, how long before it turns into $1 million? And 2 months later, I sold those Bitcoin for, I think, around $600. The next time I woke up, each Bitcoin was worth $20,000. So the mistake that we all talk about is, man, I missed it. I wish I would have known. If I would have had a crystal ball, I would have bought more or whatnot. Or I would have like not sold it if I knew it would have got that high. That's fine and dandy. Everybody's going to make that mistake. But the mistake that I made in this case was to catch lightning in a bottle and do absolutely nothing about it. I had 2 full Bitcoins. I had the information that somebody said, hey, this is doing very well. I saw it go from $300-$400 to roughly, $600 in a matter of a few months. And I still decided not to focus on my winners. Focusing on my winners would have been, I should have taken to be fair, I was not broke in college. I know that's the story for a lot of people. I was actually not broke in college. I had a lot of scholarships. I could have easily put in $5,000 into Bitcoin at that time and not thought about it. And like an idiot, I did not. I found early the single best investment that the world has ever seen. That is truly actually Bitcoin. We have not had a single asset appreciate as much as Bitcoin. And I did not buy enough. So the mistake that people have never really discussed publicly is when you found gold and you decide to stop digging. And in my case, I found the digital gold, got greedy and said, nope, I'm selling it now. Instead, I should have done the exact opposite and said, it's time to double down. You only need to find one investment that 10x's. Because if you're smart, you put as much money behind that behind that one investment as possible. The biggest mistake that I always tell people is just that imagine you did buy NVIDIA, $100 worth of NVIDIA. The only thing worse than, not knowing that it existed was to only buy $100 of NVIDIA back in 2003. If you were smart, you would have put in, I don't know, NVIDIA around that time was $2, $3. You would have put in 10 grand into NVIDIA. And then you wake up these years later and you're like, yo, I never have to work again. Had I put $5,000 into Bitcoin, because again, $5,000 was reasonable for me at that time. Had I put in $5,000 into Bitcoin at that time, you guys would not know me because I'd be living on a private island with a private jet, because again, I'd be rolling in dough. But it's a painful, painful mistake to be so close to the finish line and say, dog, I didn't focus. And when I talk to people about, this journey of investing now, I make it very, very clear. I am never going to make that mistake again. I am never, ever going to make that mistake again. You know, people get excited about a 20% return. And I'm like, bro, a 20% return is not going to do anything for you. You want to wake up one day and realize you got a 1,000% return, meaning your money has grown from your money has grown pretty much 10x. That's what you want. That 10x return is life-changing money if you focus, if you lock in, if you say, yo, I found it. I just need to put as much money behind it as possible now. Again, imagine buying $5,000 worth of Bitcoin back when it was, I don't know, $600. Like, hold on. I actually want to do some quick math here because, yeah. Can somebody tell me what one Bitcoin is worth right now? 5,000. Can somebody actually look this up? Tell me what is one Bitcoin worth right now? Does anybody know that off the top of your head? I don't know. Does anybody know what one Bitcoin is worth right now? Because I cannot look this up because my internet is moving incredibly slow. What is the cost of one Bitcoin right now? 92,000, 80,000, somewhere around there. At that point in time, I could have done around $5,000. 5,000 divided by 500, of course, is equal to 10 times $92,000. That meant if I would have, locked in, I would have $920,000 off of a $5,000 investment. Do you know how terrible it feels to know that you did the impossible already, but you were too silly to not lock in? The impossible is finding gold. You found the gold and you decided not to lock in. This life is long. It's going to be hard no matter what. You just got to choose the type of hard you want to have. I never, ever, ever want to have the type of hard where I found gold and did nothing with it. So the final way to summarize that, Cam, you took the words right out of my mouth. Let your winners ride. And in fact, when they start winning, double down and put more behind it. If possible, of course. That doesn't mean go put your rent money up on it. Because, if you need your rent, you need your rent. But the single worst mistakes that you could ever make can be boiled down to these 3 simple things. 3. Number 1 is making this money building process an afterthought. Saying, fine, I'll start it in a year. Again, every year that you wait costs you roughly $300,000. It's a huge price tag to pay, all because you don't want to start. It costs you roughly $300,000 every single year that you wait. Assuming that you're starting at the age of 20. And again, for Jose, who wanted to try to correct me here and be wrong at it, by the way, the assumptions are simple. $150 every month for 45 years, 12% compounding monthly. That translates to $3.2 million. Every year that you wait, though, is going to cost you $300,000 off of that total. Number 2 is not having a process, a repeatable process. There are going to be days that you wake up and you're going to be like, oh, Trump is ending the world. I should stop investing. Wrong answer. Your process is simple. It doesn't matter what's happening. You stick to your plan. Your plan is repeatable. It's easy. You don't got to think about it. You know that every month you have to invest $150 or whatever number that is that works for you. Not having a repeatable process means that you're allowing your emotions to decide what you should do. If you ask me, my emotions always want some sweets. My emotions never want to run 26 miles. My emotions never want to park money and say, hey, let it sit for a while. But again, I'm not here to listen to my emotions. I'm here to make money. Your goal is to have a repeatable process. The repeatable process is going to allow you to dominate. Everybody else is going to panic. Oh, the stock market is dropping. I've heard this rule before, buy the dip, but no, it feels terrible. It doesn't matter, my guy. Lock in. Your goal is to have a repeatable process. That repeatable process means that you don't have to think, you just do. You just execute. That is how you win. last but not least, when you find gold, you lock in, buddy. I don't care how difficult it is. But do not make that same mistake that I made, which is to find gold, find the single best investment of all of human history, and say, I'll figure it out later. My game would be over. Like, I would not, again, I would be very, very unheard of in the best way possible if I had locked in when I found Bitcoin at $400. So do not make these 3 mistakes. And again, what the heck made me want to come here and talk to y'all the same way I talk to like my friends and mentees is just that somebody got to say it. People are going to sugarcoat stuff and be like, no, you don't have to. No, you do have to, buddy. You do have to. School is not going to teach you how to make money. They're going to teach you how to work until you die. Your family leans on the decisions that you make now, or they will lean on the decisions that you make now. So it's either you make decisions with yourself and them in mind, or you decide to ignore it. But either way, this life is going to be long. This life is going to be hard. There will be ups and downs. You just got to decide what types of ups and downs you want to have. Again, last thing, because I'm clearly feeling emotional today, diabetes runs in my family. I have a crazy sweet tooth. Like, if it was up to me, every day I would wake up and have 3 cookies for breakfast. But I know that diabetes runs in my family. I also know that I want to set a good example for my children. So part of the reason why I decided to start running was because I'm my best when I run. I don't want to eat sweets when I run. I want to be healthier because I'm like, man, I just ran 4 miles this morning. I can't waste it. But again, the choice is still hard. It's hard to wake up and run 4 miles. But it's also going to be hard when I turn 40, because again, diabetes runs in my family. When I turn 40 and have diabetes, that's also a different type of hard. No one's going to explain that, hey, that decision is just as hard, it's just as painful, and it's not only going to be stressful on you, but it's going to be stressful on your family. So pick which hard you want. I want the sort of hard where I wake up and I just run 4 miles. Or I run 2 marathons a year, because I know that if I run 2 marathons a year, I have to wake up early, I have to go to sleep early, I have to eat well, I have to exercise, and I have to stay in shape. It's reverse engineering. It is saying, yo, it's going to be hard either way you go. Just pick which type of hard you want. At least pick the hard that is going to make you happier in the end goal, in the end game. And it goes the same thing for money, y'all. It's hard to be disciplined about your money. It's hard to lock in and actually care while everybody else is telling you to stick your head in the sand. Trump is ending America, blah, blah, blah. But sure enough, the stock market hit all-time highs multiple times this year. You would only know that if you were paying attention, because the popular narrative was for you to stick your head in the ground and do nothing. This life is long, this life is hard, but make sure you play an active role in picking the type of difficulty you want. I am done rambling. This felt like a journal entry for me. I appreciate y'all. Any questions before I break? If somebody wants to even go through this compound interest calculator, happy to walk through just a few quick examples for you, because I do think, people may learn something from it. But user 379, is that Travis? Travis, is that you? You still ain't added an icon to your account, my guy? Judy Jane said, can you say the big 3 again? I absolutely can, Judy Jane. Judy Jane said, you need to do a better job of summarizing, because when you summarize, people will be able to take away what you want them to take away. So Judy Jane actually can. Judy Jane, the 3 big mistakes that people will make over their lifetime. And again, these 3 mistakes will cost you everything if you continue making them. Number 1 is deciding It's an afterthought. I will start later because every year that you wait, starting from the age of 20, every year that you wait costs you roughly $300,000. If your, again, goal is to get to 3.2 million by the time you hit 65, starting at 20, all you need to do is invest $150 every month. But every year that you wait, you will be taking off $300,000 off of that. Number two is not having a repeatable process. A repeatable process allows you to do the exact same thing regardless of how you feel. A repeatable process will allow you to say, hey, I don't care what's happening in the world. I don't care what's happening if I feel happy or low. I am still going to invest $150 every single month. Mistake number 3 is not doubling down when you find gold. When you find a stock or an asset that is, doing very, very well, that is when you say, hey, focus there. Instead, what people start doing is like, oh, let me take my money out and let me do something else with that money. Bro, ain't nothing else you're doing with that money going to grow as much. Again, we have stocks in our portfolio. Multiple people on Benson have stock. A lot of people on Benson have stocks in their portfolio that are up 100+%. It would have been the silliest mistake ever for them to be like, yo, let me take out half. Why? Ain't nothing you doing with that money going to do better. Let it sit. You care about 50% right now when the stock is going to go up 200%. Relax. Let it rock. Those are the 3 mistakes. Don't make those mistakes. You are going to do better than 95% of everyone else. Start as soon as possible. Have a repeatable process so that it doesn't change for how you move. It doesn't change. You stick to your plan. And 3, when you find something that works, do more. Do more. That's it. That is quite literally it. Yeah. And again, I'm telling you from my own personal mistakes as well. I'm not telling you, I'm only 30. Or I'm about to be 31 next week or in 2 weeks, I think. I've made a lot of mistakes though. And the best thing that I can do is 1, I'm not making those mistakes again, but 2, I can share it with you so that you hopefully don't make the same mistake. That is the most that I can offer. I know that, I would love for everybody to go ahead and download Benson. I love all that. But even without Benson, these rules still apply. They still apply. So hey, take it or leave it. But my TikTok verification is not working, so I may get kicked off of TikTok in a matter of 1 minute and 17 seconds. Any final questions while I am here? Any final questions while I am here? I can still see the chat, but for some reason I cannot verify right now. 18 said, wish I met you 10 years ago. Man, I wish I met this version of myself 10 years ago. But again, the best thing that we can do is start making changes now, either for yourself or for the people that you care about. Robert said, thoughts on SoFi? Nah, I'm not giving thoughts on SoFi. I don't care about that. Nancy Hackett said, that was intense. Thank you. It was intense. This is how I talk when I'm talking to my friends, y'all. So, today's just one of those days, man. I was very proud of my guy, Jason, but nonetheless, I'm like, hey, it resonated with him. Hopefully one person walks away from this conversation and it was just like, yo, that helped me think about this just a tad bit differently. If one person walks away with that, I feel like a winner. But oh, yep, there it goes. TikTok kicked me off. I'm done here, y'all. Be easy.